Okay. I am very sorry about that, guys. Oh my gosh. That's really irritating. Hold on, I can just edit my info here. Save. Excellent connection, you say. I'm not sure why, but I don't believe you. Innocence, hello. Sorry about that. I am not actually certain that it's my internet. I think it might be my streaming app. For whatever reason. But, maybe I'll have to try a different one. Or something. Last stream crashed? Yes, the last stream definitely crashed. Stream reload. Yeah, I had to stop it and then make a new one because, I don't know, it just wouldn't start. I had to force stop my streaming app and then start it and then just restart it, and now it's working. So, let's hope. I have a turtle and his name is Tortu. Interesting. What is your turtle's name? I still don't remember what my family officially named it. I just call him Turtle Man. You stopped in the middle of commenting on the killshot dash. Don't think it's netcode or latency. Okay. So, what I was saying was that I have quite literally never, and I'm extremely certain about this when I say it, I have quite literally never had an instance where a killshot dash should have done damage to me, but it didn't. I have always taken damage when I should have. So, as someone who does not use it, I am not necessarily saying that it's entirely latency. It could just be a thing that you don't notice as much unless you are the one using the kill shot. And, I do get hit by kill shots, but not so often that it's ridiculous. So, I'm not going to 100% peg that to, this is what happens all the time. That's just in my experience. And the fact that I have never observed this happening makes me... I think it's possible. I think it's fairly possible that it is some type of latency thing. There was an instance where I was playing with a clan member against two other people. The both of us were having the same issue, and it was... it was against another two people. We were playing a 2v2 like tournament match, custom thing. And they ended up winning, partially because, they're very good players. But also partially because they were they were not where we thought we were. And we were not where we thought we were. Like, if we're behind a small cover on their screen, we're actually sitting out in the open, like 5-10 meters off to the side. And they just easily killed us from behind cover because we thought we were in cover, but we actually weren't on their screens. So it is like, there is a bit of difference that happens with like latency. And what happens on one person's screen does not always happen on the other person's screen. I had this issue with Sentry during one of my live stream custom matches a week or two ago. It was like 2 weeks ago. Where I was I was a cheetah and I tried to mine his kill shot. He wasn't dashing at me or anything, but I tried to mine him because he was frozen. But he was actually a good like 10 meters forward, more like further forward than he was on my screen. So my mines just did no damage to him. Like they activated, they exploded, and they did nothing. So I was like, what the heck's going on? I obviously knew that he wasn't hacking, but I was confused. And then he sent me a video on his side, and I was like, as soon as he got frozen and he like kept rolling an extra like 5-10 meters, I was like, yeah, that's a lot further forward than it was on my screen. I remember that already. When two kill shots dash at each other, the bot always wins, but never gets damage. It's insane. This always happens to me when I use kill shot. I mean, damage radius implants are a thing. So if the bot does have one, they're more likely to deal damage to you. Besides that, I don't know. It could just be a latency thing on your side. Because obviously there is a way where both of them deal damage. I very much doubt that one of them just gets canceled out every time. I thought only I have the kill shot problem. Okay, yeah, if you use it more, you see it more from your visual experience. Just makes me think it has to do with how the server is transmitting data. It very well could be, yeah. Especially, like, see, if it's a game with you and just a bunch of bots, then everyone should be on the same side because, well, not on the same side, but like on the same page. Because there's no data that needs to be transmitted to anything, really. Like, the instance of yourself in a given match is where the bots see you, so long as it's just you and the bots. You are the only instance of yourself according to yourself. If there's another player, then depending on their network, depending on your connection, depending on how the data is transmitted between yourself and the other person, then there are two instances of yourself, one that you see and one that he sees. They could be the same, but they're very likely slightly different. So especially if there's another player on the other team, then probably, like, that's probably the issue. Like, I'm sure it happens with bots, but my guess is if there's a player on the enemy team, then it happens with the bots more often, because the bots probably see what the player sees as his team's instance of yourself. If it's just you against a bunch of bots, that shouldn't happen in any scenario. So if that is the case, then it could be something else. Even solo, can't there be latency? Like how your data goes to the server and how it transmits the AI data back to you. Far less likely than with other real players, but still. There is a small amount, but generally speaking, like, you can play against bots because, like, the bot AI is in the game. It's not like yeah, it could like technically be like, game lag at that point. But like the bot AI is in the game. It is not something that needs to transmit to anyone else. And you could play against these AI offline, like in a custom match. And you could play them without any internet connection at all. And the difference between these bots is nothing. Like, yes, they're named something in like a real game. They're like, named whatever. And then in a custom match, they're just named bot 1, bot 2. But the difference in these bots is literally nothing. And there should not be much. Yeah, like you said, yeah, there's probably some. But there should not be much at all. And also, since you are the only since you are the only instance of yourself, quote, uh, it's a lot more likely that they pull off your data as opposed to, them necessarily seeing anything. Because if there's two players and they both see different things, which one does the bot pull data from, right? How do they determine where you're at if, according to two different players, you're in two different locations? If there's only one player in the group, then that is the only instance of that player, and there's only one place that you could be. Because they don't have eyes, so to speak, and they don't mount cameras to these bots and give them all of these different things. I did ask this in the original stream that died. How much longer do you think Mech Arena has before it dies? That's a good question. I didn't see that, unfortunately, but I guess even if I did, it wouldn't have mattered, huh? I would say... I mean, it's already dying. Everybody already sees that. It's not going to get any better than it is. The number of downloads will obviously go up, as any app in-game does. Because uninstalling a game doesn't count as a negative download. It just, anyone who downloads it, it's an extra download. So the downloads will continue to go up, but the active players will continue to go down. And I think that will end up bottoming out in, I would say, probably about a year. I think that once they see that things are nearing the end, they will start to introduce more things to draw both sides in, pay-to-win players, free-to-play players. They'll introduce things to extend the life. But when you look at the marketing tactics that Mech Arena is using at the moment, which are very likely dictated by Plarium and not by the development team themselves. It's not like the people who are, the people who are drawing out the concept art are sitting right next to the people who are working out the monetization thing. And these monetization people, they're like, I really want to make people spend a freak ton on this game. I want to make it super pay to win, and then these artists just nod and they're like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. No, it's not like that. The people who create this game, that's literally their job, and it's basically their life's work, depending on what other games they've created. But it's kind of they put a lot of effort into it. They want it to be a good game that people love. So if it were up to them, they would not make the game so pay to win. I am 100% certain about that. So the money aspect is done from the side of, dictated by Plarium. And I think Plarium has enough data. I think Plarium has enough data to where they can accurately determine what their best course of action will be. And nothing irritates me more in this game than when somebody says, hey, Plarium, you could make more money if you did X, Y, Z. And I'm over here thinking, that is clearly, that's not true. Sentry, hello. But logically speaking, these are professionals who make a living from their apps. They know what they're doing. They have 1,000,000 times more data, knowledge, and experience than you do. Your people who say that are looking at it from a very one-sided perspective. They're looking at it solely from the perspective of what they see and what they want and what they think should or should not be. But that is completely inaccurate. If there was a way for them to, if there was a realistic way for them to make more money in a specific scenario, they would take that scenario. Because they know what they're doing, they know what their options are, right? I would tell Plarium, from my personal perspective, they don't have ads or anything on their game, right? They could just put ads in, and make it so you can get a couple resources, a couple A coins, maybe refresh your battle points, get like a free shop crate, refresh the implants in your shop just by like watching an ad or something. They could potentially get more money from that. They could potentially lower the overall cost of everything else by doing that. But I'm not going to bother telling them that because they very, very obviously already know what their options are, and there is a very good reason as to why they're not doing that. So honestly, nothing irritates me more than when somebody thinks that they know more than the professionals do. And it's just not the case. Like, no, they know what they're doing. And if they're doing it this way, it's because the data tells them that this is the way they're going to make the most amount of money. And if that's the case, then, that's probably because the game is going downhill. Can you do Bricky Boy Challenge? All right, 1 minute. 1 minute. Marketing is possibly dictated from Aristocrat, but yeah, not the dev team. Okay, yeah. That's basically what I meant, but yes. Yeah, because Playrum's owned by Aristocrat, but like, I think, yeah, I don't know exactly. I'm not gonna bother like speculating because that would just be speculation. But yes, basically speaking, it's not done by them. Mech Arena is a newbie game, and it's need that much money to get them profits after 1 year. They might settle down. Think like a businessman. I mean, sure, but again, like, I don't know. I feel like a game gets the most amount of hype when it like first releases, right? And the global launch was a big thing for Mech Arena. They had this big event, and it just was not received well. It didn't work very well for them. It wasn't received super well. It was partially due to circumstances out of their control, and that was unfortunate. But there's not really anything they can do about it. Like they can't global launch it again. They can't do that again. That was their one big shot to make a big thing, to get a lot of headlines and news, whatever, things like that. Like that was their one big shot to get themselves out there the most. They didn't really do a big event in global though. I mean, I feel like they kind of tried to. It just kind of flopped. Nobody really cared about it. I actually don't even know exactly what I don't know everything that they even did because I didn't even care about it. But I feel like they did kind of try. I mean, as far as a global launch goes, like, how big of an event do global launches get, right? As far as a global launch goes, I think it was all right. I sometimes got ads, by the way, 5 times on my old device. Got ads on what? Mech Arena? It's got nowhere on it. Does it even like show you an ad though? I'm confused. Can you do areas with long arm 12? I could. As to whether or not I will, that's a different story. Ratatouille, welcome back. The biggest event they did, Mexer here, was after Global, and they rushed it out, hardly promoted it. But they did advertise heavily. Yeah, they did advertise a bit. It was... that's the one that I was thinking about. Wasn't that, like, roughly around global launch? It was pretty close, like, within, like, a couple weeks or so. Like, a couple weeks, a couple of months. It was close enough to where I considered that the global launch. I guess at the same time, I didn't really notice when the global launch technically officially was because I had had the game the entire time anyway, and it didn't really like make any difference to me. Did they like introduce pilots on global launch or something? I don't know. But yeah, they didn't really promote it that much. Does tanking exist in Mech Arena, where player intentionally lower their division for getting easier opponents? Uh, yeah, you can like lower your squad power by taking out most of your mechs, and then go up against easier players. But that's considered cheating, and if people catch you doing that, they will report you, and you could potentially get banned for it. If I caught you doing that, I would report you. So keep that in mind. Yeah, I know they did a lot of like YouTube ads and a lot of like YouTube sponsors. I saw a lot of YouTube sponsors for sure. Yeah. I feel like they did what they had to do. It just kind of didn't take off. Not really an event. Yeah. Fair. Yeah, I mix up the global launch with the Mixer Here event. I kind of attribute that as the global launch. I thought that it was like at the same time, but it's like I just said, I actually don't know when the global launch was in relation to that event. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what exactly is a global launch event, right? Like, what other games have kind of events for global launch? They really don't. Is basically what I'm trying to say. For those who don't understand tanking, can explain it. Well, I mean, it's just like I just said. I got the game in like February or March. Nice. That was pretty recently. I got ads, by the way, on my old device before starting match. One ad after match. Over ad going to the hangar. Back once seeing imagery. What device were you using? Is, I guess, the question that I would have to ask. Because that has definitely never happened for me. I've never seen an ad on this game. Even in, like, beta. So, I think your device was squeezing ad money out of you, my dude. Mech Arena event actually came out months after the global. Global was about 10 months ago. Mech Arena was about 4 or 5 months ago. So there was a gap. Oh, okay. It's like 5 or 6 months. Yeah, I knew there was... like you were telling me, and I was like, okay, well, so it was probably like a month or two, but yeah, I guess that is a pretty sizable gap. But again, like I said, the global launch did not affect me literally at all, so I just completely forgot about it. I actually had no idea when the heck it was. 4 or 5 months ago sounds like very recent. I feel like that's weird. I don't know. That sounds a lot more recent than that event was, but I'll take your word for it because I don't remember. I don't remember crap. But I assume COVID made that tough for them to do it together. Yeah, I believe they intended to do both at the same time. Oh, okay. Agreed, though. Global launch event isn't exactly necessary, just about exposure for downloads, and they did that. Just didn't retain people well. Yeah, agreed. There was, yeah. I feel like, you know, a good part of it at least. A lot of the people who did actually download it ended up, liking it from what I would assume. Because, like, it's a good game, and it's been a good game. And it's a bit more pay to win than it needs to be, to be completely honest. But, you doesn't really need to, you don't really need to spend anything. It's less pay to win than War Robots, and War Robots is the standing mech game apart from Mech Arena. Because all other mech games are either garbage or long dead. So basically, people's requirements are basically just, is it better than Mech Arena, or is it better than War Robots? Cool, I'll download this game instead. And I think it met that requirement. Just didn't happen to take off. Dude, this is a question stream, yes. Pretty much. Should I put in Guardian or Arachnos? Well, probably Guardian. Arachnos is not good for late game. It's good for like early game once you first get it, and up until basically like it's like this. You get it and you put it in your hangar when you first start, right? And it's higher rank than everything else. Don't upgrade it at all. As soon as everything in your hangar is a higher level than your Arachnos, more than likely that is the time that you want to get rid of it and replace it with something else. Joker, hello. Welcome, welcome. Dude, I'm in mid-game. Do you suggest me to buy Pulse Cannon 8? No, I do not. Pulse Cannon 8 is not something you'll use later, so it's not even worth buying. It's usable in mid-game, but it is not at all necessary. Missile Rack 8 is the one that you want to get. Missile Rack 6, I would also not recommend that you get that, because it's also not something you'll basically ever use. So just get Missile Rack 8. Stasis 16 is decent for a little while, but not long enough to where I would really consider it a good weapon to get. Long arms are decent. Javelin racks. Yeah, like mortar, javelin rack. Javelin rack is not something you'll use late game, but you can use it for early and mid game, and it'll be very good for both of those. All I ask you is to not get too comfortable with it, because there's a lot of people who bring their javelin rack kill shots into late game, and it's like, yeah, well, your maxed out kill shot with javelin 8s is not really utilizing itself entirely, if you know what I mean. Should Guardian need more speed, like 17? It's 16 now. I think Guardian's fine. It's in the top 5 max, in my opinion. I'd call it like number 4. So, like, it's able to counter literally everything just because of its ability, and it's got pretty good HP. Its speed isn't great, but everything's got to have a downside. What do you think? Best build for 18 energy and 20 energy Ares in the point of free-to-play. Arc Torrent 10 and 6. And then double Arc Torrent 10s if you can on a 20 energy Ares. You could also do Disc 8s, and then replace an 8 with a 12 once you get to 20 energy. You could use 2 8s on Ares with 20 energy, and it would do decently. But obviously, like, you have more options when you get to higher energy levels. As to whether or not you have the weapon, that's a different story, but you do have more options. But yeah, Arc Torrent Disc Launcher, definitely best combos I would recommend. Long arms. Nah. I mean, long arm Ares isn't bad, but it's not the optimal Ares weapon. I know I got Missile Rack 6 and I regret. Fair enough. Can we do Panther or Guardian heavy beams above 8? What do you mean? I'm not doing customs today. No. Customs are for Sundays. If we did it twice a week, then like the one idea that I have for customs, because I run out of ideas for customs every time. The one idea that I have for customs would be used up on Wednesday, and then I would have nothing for Sunday. I said earlier, I'll actually plan on doing hangar reviews later, so if any of you guys want that, I'll probably do that in, what time is it? Like 11:30. I'll probably do that in like an hour, hour and a half, maybe? It only does 4,000 less damage than Missile 8. This is true, but think about it. The two weapons are fairly similar in price. I think you actually unlock the 8 before you unlock the 6. The 8 is clearly better, and you could get a 6, but unless you were using an 8 and a 6 for a rank 6 light mech that's not maxed out, so like a 14 energy light mech, unless you're doing it for that, then you're probably going to be using both Missile 8s on a single mech, right? In that scenario, you would then have one pilot for Missile Rack. It is incredibly difficult and not at all recommended that you try to make two different pilots for the same weapon, especially as free-to-play, especially early on in the game, because you're not going to get very many good implants, and you're going to want to, pool those all onto your main better pilots. So Missile 6 is just, it's simply not worth getting because you will realistically never use it. Missile Rack 10. Oh, try out Bricky Boy, Missile Rack 10 and Javelin Rack 8. Do you mean Missile Rack 12? Or do you mean Rocket Mortar 10? I think you mean Rocket Mortar. But I will be completely honest when I tell you, I don't have a Rocket Mortar pilot. I don't have any implants on the rare one. I don't remember what his name is. And Faye, I have Gauss Rifle implants on, so I don't plan on using mortars until they balance them. Can you review my hanger? I need help. Not right now. But due to some technical issues, your stream ended. Though you continued it later, I couldn't join as it was, hold on, let me read that. As it was midnight to me, said. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. You talking about Sunday? Yes, the stream ended suddenly and terribly. It also ended suddenly and terribly earlier today, too. Like 20 minutes ago or something. Yeah. It's been awesome. But yes, I mean, Sunday didn't go very well, unfortunately. That was kind of unfortunate. I am working on a specific thing. I wasn't sure if I wanted to announce it today or if I wanted to announce it Sunday. I think I'm gonna wait for Sunday. So it's pretty relevant to Sunday streams, I suppose. How much money have you used in this game? Over the last, 2 years, I've spent probably a little over, $1,000. US dollars. But I don't care. I mean, you can call me pay to win. Because I can prove to you that I'm not. There is Missile Rack 12. Why need of 10? Of common sense. Oh. No. I think the Master Mech Arena was trying to say Rocket Mortar 10, not Missile Rack 10. So Ratatouille was just he was like, why are you saying Missile Rack 10? I think he just swapped the M and the R. I'm in California and it is raining. Well, I hope that doesn't mess with your internet, because sometimes that messes with mine. I don't really use Rocket Mortar. Yeah, me either. I duplicated my 12s, I just haven't done anything with them since. Oh, that's not true. I did a few things with them before Pilots came out, but then as soon as Pilots came out and they became super OP, I was like, oh, okay. I guess I'm not doing anything with these. Joseph. I cannot add you, but you can add me. In the description of this stream, there's a link to my Facebook. You can go into that and add me as a friend. Because I finally linked Facebook. I was having problems with it, but whatever. Do you think the VRPG 16 is needed? I mean, what do you mean by needed? Like, do you need it for a good hangar? Definitely not. Do you need it, like, is it useful since there's already a 14? Sure. Yeah, I mean, a 16 is always better than a 14, right? Having two 16s on a maxed out mech. Having two 14s on, like, a rank 6. 14 is an interesting energy type. And I think it's actually... Like, there's not a lot you could use it on. You could use a single one on a rank 6 light mech, and you could use two of them on a rank 6 heavy mech. It is very much a late game weapon, but I think it's a good energy. I think it's a good energy to have because it specifically caters to mostly free-to-play players who have rank 6 mechs but not maxed out mechs, right? Because it takes a lot of blueprints and a lot of resources to max out a single mech. So you're going to have it at rank 6 for a very long time. So having two 14 energy weapons maxing out your energy capacity for that rank 6 is pretty good. I think that's a good idea. Would I recommend that you get the VRPG 14? Absolutely not. I mean, you can't get it right now, but if there was like a money offer for it, you're probably better off not using it, to be honest. Recently, I'm losing most of my matches. What can I do to get easier opponents? I think you're looking at it wrong. On the same, and it's kind of the same thing as when people die to a bot. You know, like they get a couple kills, they die, and they feel like, 3 kills before a bot kills me isn't very much. I see YouTubers get like 10, 12. Bots should be easier. Bots are too strong. They should nerf bots. Bots are so unfair. No. In a completely fair game, you are getting an average of 1 kill per mech. Your mech dies, someone else's mech dies. It's a fair exchange. So you're going to get an average of 5 kills per battle. That said, in a completely fair game, you will win about 50% of your games. If you're winning less than 50% of your games, it's because you are not focusing enough on tactics and skill, and it's probably mostly because you're just running into a bunch of bots thinking that you should be able to take them out easily, but you're just not taking them out easily. Against players with higher squad power than you can try to run in squads more often. That will potentially save you. But generally speaking, you should not think of it in terms of how can I get easier opponents. You should think of it in terms of how can I get better at the game. Or what can I do, like what can I change in my hangar to where, I'm more prepared for things that I come across. Let's say I'm using this hangar, right? And I'm losing a lot of matches because I don't have a sniper in my hangar. So if I were to look at it and be like, okay, well, I clearly don't have any kind of like long range here. The only long range I have is a beam weapon, and the sustained fire of the beam makes it pretty bad for sniping. You want to use that at like, less than 100 meters. So I would put long arms in here instead of probably, well, obviously instead of the beams, because beams are garbage, but, let's say I really wanted the beams, or we'll pretend that beams were a different weapon. I would probably put them in instead of missile rack, because, missile rack is good for like, anything under like 50 meters. Usually you can hit somebody with missile rack in like a distance under 50 meters. But I got shotguns that'll do that. I got disc launchers that'll do that. I got arc torrents that'll do that. I don't need the missile racks. I got a mid-range. I need a long range, so I put that in, and I can get my overall performance to be a little bit better. Do you think a buff for redox is reasonable? Reasonable, yes. I believe, yes, a buff for redox is reasonable. Do I think that they'll do it? Probably. I think that they'll slowly buff all of the legendary mechs. Potentially some of the legendary weapons, too, which I'm a little bit scared about because they might buff Disc Launcher, and I would hate them for that. But Carbine could use it. Carbine could use a little bit of buff. I wouldn't mind that at all. It doesn't make sense for them to add a Voltaic 14. 14 plus 14 is 28, but if they added a 12 instead, it would be the same thing. 16 plus 12 equals 28, so I don't know. I guess it would be cheaper to get two 14s instead of a 16 and 12. Yes. Basically, yeah, it's just cheaper. But the thing, what I'm saying is that, like, 14 isn't like it's not an energy type that people are crying out for, right? Because it's high up enough to where there's really only two instances where you could use it, right? The 14 that a light mech has at rank 6, and the 28 that a heavy mech also has at rank 6. So it's very much a niche energy, but they've been doing energy in twos. Like, there's been, increments of 2 between energies for a very long time, and they just skipped 14 for the longest time. I think adding 14 isn't really going to hurt anything. If you don't get a 14 energy weapon for, like, long-term benefits, then sure, you could just get, like, a 16 instead, and then just kind of suffer until you get a maxed out mech. But like I was saying before, it does to the people who get it, not necessarily I'm not necessarily saying people should get it, but to the people that have it, let's assume that they didn't spend anything to get it, or that they just spent, like, some resources, and it's not money. But, like, to the people that have it, it benefits them for a while, because once they get a mech to rank 6, it stays rank 6 for a very long time before they're able to max it out. So they get a lot of general usage out of 214s. That's not to say that it's, like, the best energy type, or that it's, like, people have been really wanting 14s. Like, no, people have been working around it. People don't really care, but it's useful. I think it has its uses, and it will eventually kind of just ingrain itself into the rest of the energy capacities like everything else. People will get it when they feel like it benefits them. They won't get it when they feel like it won't benefit them. That sort of thing. Mortars, rails, torrents, missiles, discs are best for endgame and last game weapons. Yes, agreed. Bro, I use rocket mortar only as it gives me kill score bonus. It helps me to cope up with players with 5,000 plus SP. I mean, that's fair. If you want to use something that works really well, then there is absolutely no reason that you shouldn't. It's in the game. They gave it to you for you to use. No one has the right to tell you that you shouldn't be using it, unless it is legitimately cheating, right? Like, I would never tell anybody, like, oh, you shouldn't use this thing. I'm a little bit irritated when people use it, for sure. It gets irritating because it's such an unfair weapon, but I'm never going to be like, this person should stop using this because it's unfair. Because that's ridiculous. Should I get G-Lock or Rosa? I'm only 400 A coins away from getting them. Most people get and max out G-Lock first, myself included. And I think that might be the better choice. Disc launchers are very good without implants. Arc torrents and shotguns not so much, because you really need that range. But you can get, like, some serious other perks with it too. I would say it really just depends on which one you have better implants for. Like, if you have like the radius implant, and then, like, an epic or legendary damage for disc launcher, and then, like, legendary reload for disc launcher or something like that. Like, if you have 3 really good implants for disc launcher, get Rosa. If you have 3 really good implants for arc torrent or shotgun, get G-Lock, so long as you're using arc torrent or shotgun in your hangar at the moment. But in general, I think most people get G-Log, and I would say that that's probably the better idea. Do I think you're right? Some just want to play the game to progress. So if their goal is to log in, complete challenges, and game resources to get stuff they want, so they kind of want the RPG game stop at no, not competitive PvP, which kind of makes sense. This game is heavy AI. Yeah. I'm not a fan of that. Like, it's marketed as a PvP game, and it should be a PvP game. And the fact that bots still exist after global launch irritates me to no end. But I don't think that they're ever going to. I don't think that they're ever going to get rid of them. Like, if bots weren't a thing, it would make matches more fair, generally speaking, because every single player player spot would be occupied by a competent player of relatively similar squad power and experience. Sometimes you get like a squad on the other team, but sometimes you'll get a squad on your team. Sometimes you'll get a massive pay-to-win player on the other team. Sometimes you'll get a massive pay-to-win player on your team. But it's very likely to even out without bots. The thing is that 90% of players who play this game don't want it to be fair. They want it to be easy. Regardless of what they tell you, they don't want a fair game. They want it to be easy. They want easy kills. They want more bots, and they want them weaker. They actually don't. They don't want a fair game. They want more bots, and they want them weaker, which is sad. My Juggy still has the Arc 6. That's not bad, though. Arctorrent Juggy is a monster. I maxed out Rosa first. My G-Lag still isn't maxed out. Disc Launcher 12s are only second to rocket mortars, so I saw Rosa as more important to max first. Personal preference, though. No, you're totally right. But I do think that, generally speaking, Disc Launcher performs better without a pilot than Arc Torrent and Shotgun does. So your overall performance is probably going to be significantly better. Because, like, a pilot for Disc Launcher would just make it do a little bit better, right? The amount of extra usage you get out of it is just the damage stat increases, basically. Which would be the same for Arc Torrent, except if you had a range implant or, anything like that. Yes, you could put a range implant on a rare pilot too, but yeah, I don't know. I guess it really depends on whether or not he's got like better implants for a specific weapon. Because getting a pilot and then just not fitting it out because you don't have any good implants is kind of a waste. And you have no way of knowing when you're going to get decent implants of a specific kind. So it's probably a better idea to just get what you can for what you have and then just get the other stuff later. Because an epic pilot's like, what, 1,500 acorns? Like 1,200? It's not that much. It's enough to where you won't get another one for a little while, but it's not so much. I have a question for Scape and Ruffles. Hope both answers are different. If did 1v1 was 6,000 and 4,000, who will win and why? 6,000 one pay to win, played only 4,000 to 5,000 matches, and 4,001 above 9 million. I guess that depends on what they're using. It depends on what the map is. There's a lot of things that are determined by that. If it's a strictly 1v1, there's no bots. Yeah, I mean, it kind of just depends. There is a learning curve, and there is definitely a lot that you can learn in the game, and you can get better with a lot of different things. But at the same time, the amount of skill that you get drops off. You continue to get skill as you continue to play, for sure. But you don't get as much comparatively, if you know what I'm saying. No, oh, sorry, not 9 million, 9,000. Okay. So even though he's played over twice as many games, that doesn't mean he's twice as skilled. In order to learn the mechs that you're using, you only need like 100 games. After 1,000 games, you've basically mastered whatever setup you're using. So 4,000 to 5,000 games is more than enough time for the 6,000 player to have gotten very good at what he's using. So I don't think the skill difference there is enough to mean that the 4,000 is going to win, in my opinion. Certain loadouts for 1v1 that are good or not good for other elements. 1v1 promotes tunnel vision, which is a bad habit in my opinion. Oh, yeah. This game isn't really designed for 1v1. I hate 1v1s and I hate 2v2s, so I'm okay with that. It's boring, dude. Depends on hangars, maps, etc. 1v1 to me is a low bar that I try to avoid most times, maybe because too much 1v1 creates bad habits. Yeah, exactly. Agreed. Also, too much 1v1 is boring. Fair point on G-Lock and Rosa. Biggest benefit for disc launchers is the splash, which doesn't need Rosa specifically. Yeah,